The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the scratching sound of Emma's pen as she signed yet another rejection letter before tossing it into the growing pile on her desk. The clock read past midnight. Her desk, once a place of dreams, was now buried under stacks of unopened bills, resumes that had led nowhere, and sticky notes with motivational quotes that no longer gave her comfort. She stared at the latest rejection, her eyes stinging with tears. "We regret to inform you." The words felt like daggers. Emma leaned back in her chair, running her hands through her messy hair. She whispered into the silence, "Maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe I'll never make it." Her heart was heavy with doubt. She had been a student full of promise, but life after graduation had been a storm she hadn't prepared for. One job interview after another, doors slammed in her face, her confidence chipped away bit by bit. Loneliness crept in too. Her friends seemed to be moving forward in life while she remained stuck, like a bird with clipped wings. As she turned off her lamp and sank into bed, she clutched her blanket tightly. Deep inside, she longed for just one reason, one spark to keep going. The next morning, Emma dragged herself out of bed and trudged down the street to her favorite coffee shop, more out of habit than energy. The smell of roasted beans greeted her, but even that felt muted today. The elderly barista, Mr. Jacobs, noticed her. He had watched her come in for weeks now, always with tired eyes and a forced smile. As she ordered her usual, he said nothing, just gave her the warmest smile he could. When she picked up her cup, she noticed something unusual. Written on the sleeve was a small note, "You are stronger than you think." Her eyes widened. She glanced up at Mr. Jacobs, but he only gave a small wink before turning back to serve the next customer. Emma sat at the corner table, holding the cup as if it were fragile. It wasn't a miracle. It didn't erase her problems. But somehow, that little message cracked through her walls. For the first time in days, she felt a faint warmth in her chest. She whispered to herself, "Maybe he's right. Maybe I am stronger than I think." She left the coffee shop with a tiny flicker of hope, like a match lit in a dark cave. Walking home, Emma noticed a flyer posted on a bulletin board outside the community center. The words caught her eye. Volunteers needed teach kids to read. No experience required. She stopped. Reading had always been her escape, her safe place when the world felt too heavy. But could she teach? She wasn't even sure she believed in herself. Her first instinct was to walk away. Yet, something in her wouldn't let her move. Maybe it was Mr. Jacobs' note. Maybe it was her desire to feel useful again. With trembling hands, she tore off the contact number and signed up the next day. The classroom was filled with bright faces, some excited, some shy. The director introduced Emma to a small group of kids. Among them was a boy named Noah, a quiet, withdrawn, with eyes that never met hers. When it came time for reading, Noah refused to speak. He clutched his book tightly, but shook his head when Emma encouraged him. Something about his fear pierced her heart. She saw herself in him, the same hesitation, the same belief that failure was inevitable. Emma knelt beside him and whispered gently, "You don't have to be perfect. You just need to try. That's enough." Noah looked up at her, uncertain, but there was a flicker of trust in his eyes. Weeks passed. Emma returned every day, her own struggles momentarily forgotten as she poured her heart into teaching. Slowly, Noah began to open up. He started with single words, then short sentences. One rainy afternoon, something magical happened. The kids were gathered in a circle, each taking turns reading aloud. When it was Noah's turn, he hesitated, his small hands shaking as he held the book. The room grew quiet, everyone waiting. Emma's heart pounded. She gave him an encouraging nod. And then, in a soft but steady voice, Noah began to read, word after word, line after line. His voice shaky at first, but growing stronger with every sentence. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Noah's face lit up with pride, a smile breaking through his usual shyness. His mother, who had been quietly observing at the back, ran forward and hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. She turned to Emma and whispered, "He never believed he could do it, until you showed him." Emma froze. The words hit her like a wave. She realized in that moment that everything she had been telling Noah asterisk, "You don't need to be perfect, you just need to try," asterisk was the exact truth she had been refusing to tell herself. Her eyes welled up. For the first time in a long time, she believed not just in Noah, not just in others, but in herself. That night, Emma sat at her desk again. The same pile of bills, the same stack of resumes. But something was different now. She looked at her reflection in the dark window and whispered, "I am stronger than I think, and I'm not giving up." She began reapplying for jobs, this time not with desperation, but with confidence. Each rejection no longer felt like a judgment, but just a step closer to the right door. And then, one crisp autumn morning, she got the call. A local literacy nonprofit, impressed not just by her skills but by her volunteer work, offered her a position. Emma's hands trembled as she held the phone. This wasn't just a job, it was her purpose, turning her own pain into power, her doubts into determination. On her first day, she walked into the office with her head held high. She was no longer the girl weighed down by rejection, but a woman who had found strength within herself. As she stood in front of her new team, she remembered Noah's smile, Mr. Jacob's note, and all the moments that had brought her here. The narrator's voice closes. True strength doesn't come from never falling. It comes from believing you can rise again, and when you believe in yourself, you give others permission to believe too. Self-belief is not just power, it is the seed of transformation. And Emma's journey had only just begun. Emma's journey reminds us of a truth we often forget. The greatest battles are not fought in the outside world, but within our own hearts. Doubt, fear, and failure may weigh us down, but the spark of self-belief has the power to change everything. It took a stranger's kind note, a frightened little boy, and a moment of realization for Emma to see that she had always carried the strength she needed. Her story teaches us that even in our weakest moments, we are never truly broken. We are simply waiting to rise. So, the next time life tells you that you are not enough, remember Emma. Remember that believing in yourself is not arrogance, it is courage, and with courage you don't just transform your own life. You light the way for others too, because the power of self-belief is the beginning of every great story.